Welcome back to What Arty Noobs with General Disturbance. You're looking at a Kpfw III Ausf J. It's the Tier 4 German premium. Well, it's not a premium medium, this one, it's an ordinary medium. And this one's located on the northeast corner of Outpost under the command of Metallicom. Well, he sent us in this rather interesting replay after he had some computer problems earlier in the week. I think the update really caused him some problems and a bit of bother which he had to resolve, and he did manage to do it all on his own, but I think Wargaming actually put through some updates which finally solved the problem. Yes, I think they put a few bugs in and he was one of the recipients of the problem. Well, he's in the Kpfw III Ausf J, which is a tank designed in 1935 to 1937. It was one of the primary tanks which the Germans were going to use for fighting other enemy tanks. To start with, it was supposed to be, yes, an anti-tank tank. It is a medium, and you can see that T-67 didn't survive very long. But he has lost a third of his hit points in the process of taking him out. That ram really cost him because he's a medium tank, you see, and he took on a tank destroyer which is very, very light. Anyway, what can I tell you about this one? Well, we can see that he's loaded up a full load of APCR, but the 3 rounds of HE just for the effect. He needs it. He's got the 5cm gun, which is actually a Tier 4 gun. There is a Tier 3 5cm as well, but the Tier 5 one's better. And in fact, this was one of the guns that they put on the tank midway through the war. They stopped production. Ooh, you just got hit by a Kpfw III Ausf J on the enemy team. Didn't do any damage though. And that guy's aiming. Yep, bounced around off the applique armour on the front of the vehicle. And he's having difficulty. Still managed to get shots in at this range. It looks like that guy's got the wrong gun. Can he get the kill though right now? Yes, he does. Okay, so he's got his first kill. It really does help if you use the premium rounds. Ooh, shot that one past the rear of his teammate. Okay, the 5cm APCR is capable of doing 70 alpha and penetrating 130mm of armour. So it's got decent hand for a Tier 4 tank and a rapid fire rate of fire as well. You can see here he's got 2.29. The standard reload is 4 seconds, so 4.12. So he's actually dropped it quite a bit with a good crew. I presume he's got a rammer as well, which will help a great deal, and possibly as on top of that, vents. Now, the Panzer III was actually the main workhorse of the German armed forces at the start of the war. The other ones being the Panzer IV, which, as you know, the Panzer IV, that was the infantry support vehicle. And during the war, the Panzer IV actually swapped roles with the Panzer III, and the Dry became the infantry support tank, and the Fear became the anti-tank tank. I know it sounds a bit confusing, but it was all down to the size of the gun they were carrying. The Panzer Fear could actually carry a big 7.5cm gun, whereas the Panzer III could only carry as at most, well, it could carry a 3.7 or a 5cm gun, but towards the end of the war they actually fitted some Panzer IIIs with a 7.5cm gun, which made it much more suitable for taking on enemy infantry. It's decided to turn around, but there is enemy tanks. You can see they're being dealt with by the ARL-44. He's rather interested in getting at that VK over there, the 3001P. He's down to a 1 shot. He hasn't really got a shot on that VK. We're being highlighted at this moment. We're lit because there's an enemy tank directly below us, within range of us. It's an AMX CLC. There it is. Oh, it's a Churchill 1. And he can't get shots on that guy without leaning over the edge, and if he does, he'll fall over the edge. and that could be fatal. He's still got 3 kills anyway, so he's actually well off at the moment. Now, the interesting thing about the Panzer III is that although it was one specific tank, the Mark III, it actually provided the hull that they used to make the Stug. And the Stug was one of the most manufactured of all the German tanks in the war, because they made 12,000 Stugs in total. In fact, it was closer to 13,000 Stugs. And so, if you think about it, it's 13,000 Stugs, and they made 5,700 Panzer IIIs. So, technically, together, this is the hull that they made the most of during the war. Because, of course, the Stug didn't need the turret, and it was much, much cheaper. It cost them only 82,000 light marks, or in fact 82,500. He picked the right moment to leave the area, because that guy, it has got considerable armour, so he just needs to lock onto the rear of that guy and keep pumping those rounds in. If he turns around, run away as quickly as possible. Just stay behind him at all times, just pump the rounds in. Oh, he didn't get the kill, but he did get a nice amount of damage out of that. Yes, so it only cost them 82,500 right marks to make a Stug, because it didn't have the turret, but it cost them 103,163 right marks to make a Panzer III Ausf J. So quite a bit more expensive. Yes, you're looking at close to 2,000, well, it was 20,000, sorry, right marks extra just to have that turret on top of the vehicle. Of course, the thing about the Stug is that although it's a fixed gun, which could actually be fired between a certain amount of direction either side, the thing about it was that it was very flexible and heavily armoured. Now that guy's turning around, so we need to get behind him, and there's a nice kill. So he's now up to 5 kills in this game so far, and some of those kills have been higher tier tanks than himself. Remember, he's only a tier 4. Ooh, now he's trying to take on a VK, and that's a tier 5. So now he's got trouble. That's a tier 6, not a tier 5. Yep, and he's going to take at least 3 shots to kill the guy. He's pumping those rounds in. Oh, missed on that one. That's better. Got him that time. There's only one enemy left. It's a BT7. That's a tier 4. He's got his top gun. He's probably got a high caliber as well. So he's got 2,500 hit points of damage. And he's spotted for 949. So I reckon he's in for a very, very good result. You can see how this nippy little light tank, or light tank? Medium tank, is actually a lot of fun to play. A bit like the T-34 is as well. If you get it with the right gun, it can be a lot of fun. Well, he's decided to platoon. He's offered it to the T-40. If they do get the... oh, they have. They killed the last enemy tank, and that's game over. Well, that's a pretty damn good game, that one, for Metallicom in the Panzer III Ausf J. He got an ace tanker. Not the first time he's had one. He's had them before. But he also got a duelist for taking down 2 tanks who damaged him, a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle, bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits, he got 7, and he got some novel medals, some medals that are rarely seen. The Nichols medal, you have to kill 4 enemy tanks or tank destroyers with a medium tank in one battle. They have to be at least 1 tier higher, and that's fairly difficult if you think about it, because you are taking on superior tanks and wiping them out. In fact, he was actually taking on some pretty hefty tanks which were tier 6 when he's only tier 4. So very, very well done indeed. He got the high caliber for dealing the most damage in the game, and he got a top gun for getting at least 6 kills. But just look at that win rate, 21,425. It's a massive score, showing how versatile this little tank is and how good Metallicom was when he was keeping his cool and pumping in the damage on the enemy. Let's have a look at the team score. Well, easily at the top with 2,514 hit points. Yes, Metallicom gets his high caliber. Second highest was the KV1 with 1,731, and the third highest was the RL44, who managed 1,695. The highest scorer on the enemy team, well, it was their VK3001P. These are tier 6 German tanks, so yes, they were expected to do the damage, but they failed in this case. Well, they only got 1,500 between them, whereas a little medium tank managed to outplay them completely. When it came to kills, he had the highest number of those, with 6. The nearest player to him only had half of that, and that was the one of the VK3001Ps. He had 3 kills, and then 2 kills went to a lot of tanks, so I won't name them. When it came to base XP, he's got that one as well, so he's got the top in all 3 columns. 1,395 went to Metallicom, 775 went to ARL44, and the KV1 managed 760. So he well outplayed these guys. He almost got a double the XP that the nearest players to him managed to get. 48 shots fired, 41 direct hits and 34 penetrations. Well, he was carrying a lot of APCR, and that's going to have a significant effect upon his figures at the end of the results. Yeah, 2,514 hit points of damage, of which 241 were at more than 300 meters. 3 hits received from the enemy, one of which was a penetration, 2 non-penetrations. I think those were the shots from the Kpfw III Ausf J at the towards the start of the battle, but he did receive 1 pen that actually did do some damage to him. That was the T67, if I remember. And of course, he rammed that T67 as well. He blocked damage of 220 hit points altogether. 3 enemy vehicles spotted, 9 enemy vehicles damaged, 6 killed, and 949 hit points of damage assistance. He earned 54,620 credits for the battle, 7,101 for mission completion, that's holiday ops, 61,721 credits altogether, but that cost on APCR, yeah, really hurt him, that did. A lot of APCR spammed at the enemy, and it did give him the pens, but it took away all his credits, and he actually made a loss of 35,356 credits for the game, but I don't think he'll be worried about that. 2,092 XP, times 2 for the first victory, 4,458 from holiday ops, 8,643 experience points altogether. So yes, the Kpfw III Ausf J, it's actually very good if you select the right gun. You can pump out a lot of damage on the enemy. Remember, I think it was one of these, or at least it may have been one of the Kpfw IV Ausf Gs, I think, that supplied the gun that's actually now used in the brand new Panzerkampfwagen KW1, which is the KV1 converted to German use. I think it was the 7.5 gun that they actually had on a Panzer Die. It may be the Panzer IV, I'm not absolutely sure, but it was the KWK-40, I think, that they were using. But this is a very, very interesting little tank, and really, I think it's underestimated by a lot of people because, you know, they manufactured a lot of these. They got them very, very good indeed. They still had a few faults on them in terms of shot traps in the wrong places. But by putting on the applique armour, they made these things very difficult to kill. And of course, because they were very cheap to actually manufacture, they pumped them out like nobody's business. And they were still very effective, even at the end of the war, when they were up against some pretty good Allied tanks, which were able to more than cope with them and defeat them, especially the Russian ones or the Soviet ones, which would just take them out with one hit, but from a 122mm gun, or an 85 for that matter. But they were still very effective, and you can't underestimate the fact that most of these tanks, instead of actually taking on tanks, were actually taking on support vehicles, troops, artillery pieces. They weren't taking on tanks most of the time, and therefore, when one of these came up against a support vehicle, they were more than capable of taking them out completely. And because they were very fast and nippy, and they had good armour, they were very effective. So, thanks very much to Metallicom for sending in this replay. It's actually very, very interesting. Let's have a quick look at the armour profile for this tank, so we can actually acquaint ourselves with it again. We're actually seeing it there with the wrong gun. Let's put the correct gun on, because that's it. That's the 5cm. You can see with the 5cm gun, it's actually got that extra armour around the mantlet, which makes it much more tougher. In fact, it's actually working as spaced armour as well, applique armour on top. So it's very, very difficult to pen. Look at that, 83.8mm there with the applique armor or spaced armor around the driver's area. You're looking at 50 impacted armor, and 20mm with 70 overall. It was only really the front of the vehicle, which you might say is suffering. 50mm there, but it's coming out 54, but that's still very strong against small arms fire and anything that the British or the Allies were able to put up at a moment's notice. You can see that big cupola, which is a weak spot, but it's got some quite tough armor to protect the commander. And of course, that cupola was very important because this design of actually having the commander sitting at the back of the turret, watching what was going on, he could give commands to the driver from where he was sitting, but he also had the ability to give the commands to the driver, the gunner, and also to the loader. So he's in a very central position, and of course with the radio set as well, it meant that he could keep in contact with his colleagues elsewhere. It's very thin armor on the sides, 30mm. It's not really designed to be hit from the sides. It's supposed to hit the enemy really hard and get away. 50mm there, armor on the rear, which is actually quite strong. The top armor though is very thin, 16mm. So yes, you should be able to take one of these out with an Arty round placed in the right spot. We look at the live model. Okay, faced by a 5cm gun, you can see that it's actually quite strong armor all round because that applique and extra thickness on the armor really makes it very difficult to penetrate. If we show the 7.5cm, you can see the 7.5 actually makes it slightly easier for it to pen. So if it was coming up against something that had 7.5cm of caliber, then it would suffer. It might suffer anyway. Certainly from the sides it would suffer, but from the front it's still pretty good. Let's have a quick look at the modules. Okay, let's bring it up to full size. Now, as you can see, it's quite an unusual layout. So we've got a machine gunner stroke driver's mate on the left-hand side. We've got the big transmission right at the front here, directly in front of the driver who's on the right-hand side. The gunner is actually on the right-hand side as well in the turret, and the loader's on the left-hand side. And there's that commander that I was talking about. He's in a central position, like the God mode. He's sitting directly behind the breech, so he has to remember to keep his fingers and hands out the way as that breech comes flying back at him, because if he doesn't, or if he eats too much breakfast, he is going to end up getting hit by the breech, and yeah, that's going to kind of ruin his day, or at least it's going to ruin his marital prospects, because more than likely it's going to hit him in the groin, which is not going to be very nice. Anyway, you can see engine central at the back. It's got one big fuel tank on one side on the wargaming model, and we're seeing two big ammo stores, one on each side, deep inside the tank. So if you want to get an ammo rack, you have to aim through the sides of the tank, right underneath the turret. There's no ammo rack in the turret for you to actually aim for, but it's cramped enough that you'll probably hit one of the crew members and take them out instead. Best thing on this one is to actually aim for a mobility kill, because you can easily go through the sides of the vehicle, take out the engine, or get a fire from setting light to that fuel tank, and then you can deal with it as you wish, because of course once it's immobile, then it's got to either use its repair kit or it's going to die. And yes, so you can easily get round one of these, although they are fairly fast. They're 64 kilometers an hour when they're on the move at full speed. But the thing is that they have to maneuver quickly and fast. So if you can get a shot into the tracks on one of these, and it is narrow tracks, then you might be able to put him out of action and then finish him off fairly quickly. So that's the Panzer III Ausf J modules. So thanks very much to Metallicom again for sending us in this replay. It's I don't often get replays with Nichols medals earned. I have got a couple myself actually. I seem to remember on other tanks. It's an unusual medal because you have to put out a lot of effort to actually get it, because and it is slightly easier to get in lower tiers, I must admit, on an OP tank. But you don't see them that often because you have to take out higher tier opponents. And when you're a little medium tank and you're trying to take out higher tier opponents, you usually suffer because you get victimized and bullied. So I hope you enjoyed the replay. If you did, please give this video a like, do subscribe to our channel, leave a little comment down below because it beats the algorithm, and thank you for watching.